Well, she was 3.5 years old. So she went over to the window, decided to look at it, and had her hands on the screen and went out with the screen. 40-foot drop.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's impossible.
I know it.
Untouched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, because God is speaking to you and me and the church and the world. And here we get to listen in on the conversation. These encounter stories, angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome. Things seem to be floating in this episode, floating downward like a 3-year-old. From 40 feet when you hear this story? And also about this occasion where something else that floated downward was a photo. A floating photo at a time when she needed a sign from God, a photo she had never seen before, floating from where? Need your story. What is it? Let me know here at touchedbyheaven.net. And our Patreon shout out goes to Cecilia Lowe. Thanks, Cecilia, for being a part of our Patreon family. YOI, support what we do. Trucker Dan had a reason.
Your podcast, you're so real, and it's not even really, no offense, it's not you, Trapper. It's everybody else when they call and hear the motions. Like I said, there are times I'm almost crying down the road where I might have to pull over sometimes because it's real. It's happening. God is trying. I think he's trying to show himself. I just listened to, I think it was episode 104, the lady who got into the Wicca. What about her? That's a miracle story. What about a lot of these people that have called you and said, this happened in my life and God revealed himself. God sent me an angel. I didn't even think God was real. And look at what happened. And what you're doing is you're presenting a forum to allow people to say, God's working. And here's how he's working.
Thanks, Dan. Maybe that answer touches a chord with you as well. If so, patreon.com, search for Trapper Jack, or just come here to this episode, 355, touchedbyheaven.net, and click your way through. Now, Monica is a virtual teacher. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am all good, you virtual teacher, you. What are you teaching and to whom?
I have 4th and 5th grade language arts, math, social studies, science, and then I have social studies for grades 6, 7, and 8.
How'd you find the podcast?
When my dad passed in 21, I was kind of, I don't know what I was seeking exactly. I would be up in the middle of the night a lot, and I was listening to some audiobooks with different people's experiences, and I think I was looking for comfort, really, that he's okay. I think that the podcast came up in my search on Spotify. And so I started listening to it and I was like, oh, okay, there are other people that are experiencing some of the things that I have been experiencing. I want to just say it's like strengthened my faith, I guess.
As far as your upbringing, did it have all this in it?
So I was brought up Catholic, and I guess I didn't really dive into it until more of my adulthood, specifically after I had my daughter, and just I could talk about a near-death experience of our own, but, and where she was spared, and I guess it just kind of further deepened things. And
well, tell me about that. What happened?
God, she was 3.5 years old, and I was teaching special education in the brick and mortar building at the time, and my mother was watching her, and my mother lived in one of those upper lower duplexes, and it was probably built in the 1930s or 40s. So the windows upstairs were set very low, and it was spring. So she had the window open, so just the screen was there, and she was trying to coerce my daughter to go take a nap with her. And of course, as the defiant little 3-year-old my daughter was, she was like, no, that's not happening. My mother was like, well, I'm going to go back into the bedroom then, and in hopes that her walking away, that my daughter would follow. Well, she didn't. So she went over to the window, decided to look at it, and had her hands on the screen, and she patted on the screen and went out with the screen. If I had to guess, I would say it was maybe a 40-foot drop. The whole side of the house was lined with those cement cinder bricks, it's got like a garden kind of thing that goes around the side with mulch in there. And then it's outlined with those cement bricks. And somehow, some way, she landed parallel to those bricks, completely unscathed, barely any scratches on her.
What did she land in?
The mulch. The mulch, and like I think it was like they were like bushes, not quite grown all the way, like they were kind of just starting to come up.
But still, 3 or 4 stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
she just landed flat, just thunk, face down?
Yep. She could have landed on her neck or, any other, nothing was broken. Like yeah, that shook me up for a while. Even now, still talking about it, it's just like, how
well,
did
go
she
back
survive?
to this. I mean, your mom was watching, so she's seeing it happen or realizing, where is she? Sees the screen gone? What happened?
Yeah, so she just saw the screen gone. The neighbor actually saw it happen and called the police. And then then my mom called me at work, and my principal came to my classroom, told me there was, an accident. I just bolted right out of the building. And I just remember getting there, and my daughter just kind of clung to me like a little koala bear and just, obviously shaken up. But we took her to the hospital, and I mean, they were just like, she's no internal injuries, no internal, like just a couple little scratches on maybe her side.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's impossible.
I know it. And I wish you could see the house, because the fact that she didn't hit those cement blocks. I mean, they were the big ones, not the small ones. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And parallel to, perfectly flat, no internal injuries, no head injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't knock her out?
Nope. And I almost envision it like she was on a magic carpet riding that screen down, because even landing in that bush, you would think like, well, maybe those sticks would like penetrate her skin or something, but something basically floated her to the ground. And I don't know that she landed parallel. I'm basing that off of where her scratches were and the fact that she did not hit her head on those cinder blocks.
Neighbor sees it happen.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
So a lot of crying?
For who? Yep.
Good point.
She was very shaken up. I like when I got there, like I said, she just clung on to me like a koala bear and like would not let go. But I ask her about it now, and she has no recollection of it, which is probably good.
How old is she now?
She is 15.
No recollection.
Nope.
Saved for, I mean, you look at that and go, okay, why is she saved? Is it about you? Is it about her? Is it about the offspring that's going to come from her 2 generations down? You don't know. Only God can piece all these puzzle pieces together to know what this is all about.
Yep. I mean, like I said, even if she just landed any other way.
Wow.
Yeah. I still can't wrap my head around that one. I just need to stop trying to make sense of it, I think.
Yeah, it's just God.
Yep. Yeah.
Just God.
Yeah.
So I want to try something here, and actually I can ask you, since you're a school teacher, I can ask you about AI and the impact on students in a second. But here's how I'm using it. I just started, and it tells you everything. It's amazing.
It really is.
I'll have it use the speaking mode, so it sounds like we have a friend telling us. Okay, so hang on. Okay. Chat, I've given you a summary of the story of Monica and her 3-year-old child in the fall from 40 feet. I would like you to find Bible verses related to this that we can relate from the Bible right into this story.
Bible verses for a tie-in. Psalm 91, verse 11 to 12. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone.
It's teaching me. It's actually teaching me so much about my faith and about how to. I'm being blown away.
Like you said it perfectly. It's teaching you.
We'll get back to that. Let's get back to our miracle stuff here first, then we'll explore that with our teacher here. But going back to your daughter, because in your email you mentioned this isn't the only time it seemed that divine intervention stepped in, right, for protection. What's your next story?
I also remember a time we were driving with some really bad weather all of a sudden. And I just remember hitting some ice or snow or whatever it was, and in the back of my vehicle, fishtailing and just completely losing control. And I wasn't able to correct it, by the way that I've been taught how. And we were going probably 60, 70 miles an hour. And I thought, oh boy, this is not going to end well. And oddly enough, it was around the time where Carrie Underwood's Jesus Take the Wheel song had come out. And so every time I hear that song, I always think of that, because I remember it moving like a windshield wiper, like 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And then I kept thinking about, the cars behind me. I don't think that I closed my eyes and like hoped for the best, but I certainly don't remember regaining control of the vehicle. And then it was just as quick as like a camera flash that we were just all of a sudden just back going straight.
It seemed odd.
It was, yeah. It was very odd.
Like maybe an outside force, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
No doubt in your mind, outside force.
Yeah. Guardian angel, somebody was there watching over us. Something else did that. Yeah. And it was not me.
And suddenly everything was fine.
Yeah.
Daughter was fine. Everybody's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's like, I always tell her she's on like her 9th life. She's like a cat.
Yeah.
Even just her birth alone, where she's just lucky to be here. That like, I actually worry. I kind of worry about the 9 lives thing. I mean, so what had happened was, I was in labor like any typical woman, and somehow I had gotten sick and contracted some kind of, I think I had contracted group B strep, but I had not previously tested positive for it. And I don't know, the hospital was busy, and my alarms were going off, and someone's heart rate's plummeting. I think it's the baby's. And so when she was born, I remember not hearing her cry. And I remember that was the first thing I said. I'm like, why isn't she crying? Well, they're like, well, she's got a collapsed lung. And I'm like, okay. And then, well, and she's got 104 temp, and she's got group B strep, and she's got pneumonia. And I'm like, excuse me? And so I remember going to see her for the first time, and she had a ventilator down in her little throat. And, I remember thinking like, this is not what it's supposed to be like. And they talked with me about, she could have like learning disabilities when she gets older. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, like what, they're like, we expect her to live, but we just don't know what the future is going to hold. And I don't know. I don't even know how that happened. And that nurse, they tell me that to this day, they still have trainings to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So I'm not really truly sure what happened, other than I just remember them sitting down with me, kind of almost like preparing me that, this could be ugly. And now here she is, gets 4.0s and, so.
And again, if you're like Monica, and we're all like Monica, we all have worries and we all have concerns and we all have panic and all these kinds of things. But to be able just to go into scripture and say, what do I need to read right now? And to just sit with the word for a while and let it sink in.
So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. A reassurance of God's presence and protection in moments of fear and uncertainty.
I come from a family of law enforcement, so just some background knowledge. My father was a prison warden in the state of Wisconsin at multiple different places, but he also worked very closely on the Jeffrey Dahmer case as well.
What did he have to do with the Jeffrey Dahmer case, which of course was so sick?
Yes.
He was putting people into pots, basically cooking people or something?
He was a very... Are you asking me what my dad's involvement was?
Yeah. What was he doing with it?
Okay. So my dad was working at the prison that he was at. He was actually the first on scene when he was murdered in prison. He was killed by another inmate. I have a memory of a goldfish sometimes, but I do know it was during rec time, and it had something to do with the weight room, and they were left alone unsupervised for that small amount of time. So he was on scene when that happened, and then he was responsible for transporting him to all the different places, be it court hearings. And yeah, it was ET, Entertainment Tonight. And they were talking about the new Netflix series Dahmer. And up on the screen flashes photos of my dad escorting Dahmer to one of his trials.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I've never seen this picture before. Yeah, it was just weird to see his picture on the TV. Because, he didn't talk to us much about that stuff. He tended to not talk about shop too much.
Yeah, protecting the family concerns and all that. Okay, so we continue with Dad. What happened?
Now let's rewind a little bit. My dad was supposed to have a hip replacement in May of 21 because he was a very large man. And, hips and lots of weight don't really go hand in hand. And COVID. So he had his pre-op, and then they decided in our hospital in town, they're like, nope, we have too many COVID cases right now. We're going to have to push that surgery off. Meanwhile, my wedding was coming up in August of 21. And so, he made sure he got all the cortisone shots so that he could walk me down the aisle in August. And he did. And that was like our last big hurrah. And then November came and he was ready to get his surgery, and they didn't do a proper pre-op. Well, they didn't do a pre-op to check his heart conditions, and he was just not in any position to have that surgery. And so he had the surgery in November. He woke up, was talking to the doctor, and things were fine. And then all of a sudden he had that, what do they call it? The widowmaker heart attack.
Yeah.
Um,
Too many blocked arteries.
Yep. He ended up being on life support, and, right before he passed, I just remember, like, I said, Dad, can you open your eyes? Can you open your eyes for us? I said, we're here. Can you open your eyes? And he did. He opened them up just enough for like a second to make eye contact with us, to be like, I see you. I hear you. And then, we told him, we're like, it's okay. You don't have to fight anymore. It's okay. Just go be with God and go be with your parents. And so it was really hard. It was not expected. And I bring up the point about the wedding because I just wonder if that was God's way of making sure he was still there to walk me down the aisle. Because if he would have had that surgery back in May, he would have never, who knows if he would have been alive for it.
Right. Oh, that had to be special for you.
Yeah, it was. Because I know that was something he always wanted for us and always wanted to be there for. And I told him, I was like, I am not done being raised yet. Like, I don't know how, anytime something would go wrong in my life, I would call him.
I still feel like that.
Yeah.
I'm not old enough for this yet.
Yeah, I'm like, I still need you. Like, I still need, if something goes wrong, who am I going to call? Because, like, it was always just him. After he passed, I felt like this overwhelming feeling of, like, is he okay? Like, and I wondering and, like, praying and trying to figure out something. And so with my dad, he always thought he was just a really funny guy, and I'll throw him a bone, and he had a couple good singers once in a while, but he thought he was hilarious. And humor was our love language. And as we were preparing for the funeral by putting together, the picture boards and everything else, we had everything ready to go. It was all laid out somewhere in a dining room. I was sitting at my house waiting for the heating and plumbing guy to come over because we had some kind of water leak in our basement. I welcomed him in. I kind of walked him through the house down towards the basement, and we're walking from my living room into the kitchen. And all of a sudden, this photo, like, it seemingly falls from the ceiling. Like, it was that high up that it fell left to right, like a feather falling down from the sky, left and right. And I looked, before I even looked at the picture, I looked back at the guy. I was like, did you just see that? And he just kind of looked at me all stupid and like, no, are you okay? And I picked up this photo, and it was a photo of me and him on his 80s style giant king size water bed. And he's wearing a sweatshirt and whitey tighties, pointing at the person taking the picture, who I assume was my sister, who was not supposed to be taking a picture because obviously he wasn't dressed for it.
Yeah.
And I'm
wait, how old are you at this point?
I'm 4.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And I'm 4 and I'm all curled up on his bed because that was one of the I used to do that every morning when I would wake up. I would go into his bed and I would say, "Can I go watch cartoons?"
Yeah.
And he'd always be like, "Yeah, go ahead. Like, get out of my way."
When was the last time you even saw this photo?
I've never seen this photo.
And it falls out of nowhere.
Nowhere. And also just the position of where it fell. This fell nowhere near anything, really.
I'm just trying to picture the moment where you pick this thing up, look at it, and go, "What on earth? What is this?"
Mm-hmm. And a picture of me and him, like, and I've never even seen that photo before either. And I've looked through those photos 100 of times. I have that photo in my room, like, displayed. I will never get rid of it. Like, because to me, it was my dad being like, "Hey, I'm okay. And here's a little humor to prove it." Because it was just me sitting right up next to him, kind of snuggled up next to him on that waterbed, and him pointing at my sister like, "Don't you dare take this picture." I could see him finding humor with that. And like, that was like my very first, wow.
That's just crazy.
I know it. And it's, I just, so that, like, that was my biggest, best sign. So of course, from there, I'm praying for, oh my gosh, give me more. I want more of this. Like, this is so, it was comforting to me to know, like, he's okay. And he still has a sense of humor. Everybody talks about cardinals, right? Which I don't understand, because they are mean birds. So
why they're a sign of a heavenly message that somebody's okay. I know sometimes it's funny when someone will die, you look out the next day in the backyard and, why do I have 18 cardinals in my backyard? I mean, there's a lot of those kinds of stories. We don't have cardinals here, and suddenly I have 18,
Right.
So how that
Right.
became, I'll ask Chat about
Yeah.
why cardinals get, I think I asked once before and I forgot. So we'll ask and see what Chat has to say about why cardinals.
Yeah.
But you started seeing cardinals?
Well, yeah. And I had never known to really look for them because I never really understood the concept. So I was never really seeking that. So in my moments of, like, my heaviest grief, I would just look out the window and I'm not kidding you, I just kept seeing them. And I was like, I never see cardinals. But I remember specifically driving with my husband and just, I would just have these moments where I would just fall apart in grief. And he knew to just kind of hold my hand and just not say anything, because there's nothing you can say. And I just remember looking out the side of my window because I'm trying to avoid eye contact with him. And this cardinal is flying right alongside the window as we're driving. It was even funny because I was thinking to myself before we started chatting, I'm like, how funny would it be if these cardinals just decided to show up during our chat today? And I was taking the dog outside and I brought her back in, and I look out my window and there's 2 little cardinals flying around right in my window.
Well, tell you what, I'm going to ask Chat. Hang on one second here. Why are cardinals associated with delivering messages, heavenly messages from the departed?
Cardinals are often seen as spiritual symbols representing loved ones who have passed away. This belief comes from their bright red color, which can symbolize vitality and the presence of a loved one's spirit. Many people find comfort in seeing cardinals, feeling as though they are receiving a message from someone they've lost.
Speak now.
How far back does this tradition go?
The tradition of cardinals being seen as messengers from departed loved ones is relatively modern. It became more popular in the 20th century as a comforting symbol. It's not an ancient or historical belief, but has become a touching way for people to feel connected to those they've lost.
Speak now.
Anything else you want to know?
No, that's about it for that topic.
I'm not talking to you. It's had trouble with you. Friend of mine, his son's in college, and can you imagine being a professor trying to figure out what's AI and what's the student? I can't imagine how difficult that is, other than Chat writes everything better.
Oh, I can tell you, because I have this problem with my middle school students using AI. We have a new I don't know if it's an app or a Chrome extension called Brisk. So all the teacher friends tell them. And on the free version, and you can inspect writing, and it will go through. It will tell you what is copy and pasted, how many minutes they spent on the assignment. If it is copy and pasted, it will tell you where it's coming from.
Wow. Wow. It knows.
Yeah, it's been a game changer.
As you come up against this, it's cool you got software, but it's funny how software starts battling software, and pretty soon there's going to be software to make the AI not look like it's AI.
Exactly.
It's going to say that you work 7 hours on it, so don't worry, man. You know what I mean? It's like
Totally.
they're now battling each other. It's like, so what do you do with that?
That's kind of the magical question. We just keep going, and what I have done is I have switched to more discussion-based assessments rather than just having them complete papers or things like that.
So one-on-one you're talking about?
Yep. I will
like
have
that.
them on a Zoom meeting, or, we use Google Meet, but, so that I can see them, and I also have, software that allows me to see their screen, not just them on video, but their screen. So if they are like doing a Google search in the background to try to answer my verbal question, I can see that. That's one way, but I guess the way I look at it is, I have a hard time sometimes getting my brain to say the words that I want. And so I will kind of word vomit into Chat GPT about what I want to say. And then I'll be like, now make this sound better.
What? I'm brand new to this world. I'm brand new. I'm now, and I've just done this a couple of times. I'll take the MP3 file of, say, our interview. Mm-hmm. I will get a transcription of it, because there's software that does that.
Yep.
Put the transcription into chat, and I'll say, give me a 150-word summary. It does better than I can write it. And if I think it tells too much of the story, I'll say, no, I need to tease it a little bit more than that. And so it'll change it, edit as you will. I mean, you have final say. Say. But I am so amazed. To me, it's like if I had the money to have a PR firm, I would say to it, okay, give me a show summary. I need da 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 da, and it would come back in a couple of days, and this thing gives it to you in 2 seconds. So what's the difference?
Right. Yeah, and I take a different approach. It's like, and I tell my students, I actually instruct my students on how to use it correctly, because I use it to help articulate what I'm trying to say in a productive way, because if I try to say it, it's going to come out fragmented, and, it's not going to come out the way I want. And, I tell them, put what you want it to say, go through it, edit it. There's nothing wrong with that in my eyes. I mean, and then you're being modeled, you're being taught what it looks like. And then the more you're exposed to that, the more you learn to finally do that more independently. So, I know that there's a lot of controversy about.
Yeah, because I know some companies, if you're caught using it, you're fired. And I'm thinking, I think they're missing something here. But again, it depends on what the company is and what they're doing. It's a double-edged sword. We all know that there's evil in this stuff too. People trying to fool people and con people. Because think about it now. Now they're gonna, those people who try to con you. Now they have a greater tool to con you. So there's always that aspect of it. I think it can be a great assistant for you.
Absolutely. And I wish more people would see that. But, I think some people are scared of it.
And I get it.
And I totally get that too. I think you just you have to be open-minded, but it is scary too, because I mean, my father-in-law got a call from a bot or whatever it was, that it sounded just like his grandson, saying, I'm in jail and I need money. But it was his grandson's voice. He even played it for us. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's terrible.
I know. I did a copy paste of just a paragraph, and there's a certain platform we use that's gotten used to my voice. And I did a copy paste of just something I hadn't said, put it into this platform, had my son come in, and I said, listen to this, tell me who this is. And he goes, well, it's you. What's the point? I mean, what's the matter? And I said, it's not me. It's not me. It spoke the words like it was me, There are some differences in tone, but it sounded enough like me that he went, oh, that's you. No. That's the scary
Yeah.
part, because now no matter what you see about anybody, you can have him
Mhm.
doing things and saying things that never happened, and they're already, they're doing it. They're doing it. So what do you trust at this point? What do you trust?
Yeah. That's the part I can't wrap my head around.
And imagine in 5 years what this is going to be.
I can't even look at what it's done in the past year
I know.
alone.
We were talking to a friend last night. How many people are going to lose jobs over this?
Right.
Copywriters for this for that. And I
Mhm.
said, somehow technology generally also creates jobs.
And I look at, like, especially my kids, I taught special ed for 10 years, so I look at my kids that especially my kids with autism that really have a lot of knowledge, but they just can't figure out how to put all their thoughts into something and organize it to say it. And this tool is, like, amazing for them,
Yeah.
and it teaches them. And so I think, there are so many benefits to it, but like everything else, it has to be in moderation. And, those companies that are saying, like firing people, it's like, AI is not going away. It's only going to continue.
Yeah. And it'll be able to hide itself even better. So good luck. We also know that Satan's going to use technology more and more and more to separate us from our God. We also know
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And is.
It's already happening.
Yeah, it's already, our phone is our God. You can get closer to your God through this, and I'm understanding him better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to fool anybody. I'm trying to better express him.
Sure. That's kind of where I kind of ground myself in all this, is like, where's it going and what's it going to look like? And it all kind of just comes down to that. It's like, it's going to come down to how you use it and what's in your soul, really.
Yeah.
So much good and so much evil, because it's such a, like, even just that alone is like, imagine how many people you can reach with that. Like, just that different way of providing messages.
Perspective. And sometimes you just need a different perspective on how to look at something to make you go, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. And so, for example, I was looking at the wedding feast of Cana, and somewhere in the midst of the conversation was how the miracle didn't begin until the wine ran out. Now, think about that in your own life, how the miracle begins when the wine runs out, when you are at your lowest. That's when you're at your lowest, when something incredible can come from God.
Well, that is so true, because when we lost my dad, I have never felt so low and empty in my entire life. And that was the moment in my life where the most miraculous spiritual things had happened to me. And I just looked out the window and another cardinal's flying by just now.
Just God saying hi.
Yep. And I'm so thankful for it, but it's just crazy at what time in my life that happened. So that there's a lot of truth into what you just said there.
What's your takeaway in all of this?
My takeaway is I feel such comfort in knowing that, this is just a part of our story and not our whole story. And there's so much left for us after this. And I guess the overall kind of just the theme is just peace and comfort, really.
Amen. Thanks, Monica. Our takeaway today for me, we are not alone, are we?
For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone.
The fact that she didn't hit those cement blocks. I mean, they were the big ones. And I almost envision it like she was on a magic carpet riding that screen down, because something basically floated her to the ground.
So what is your story? Let me know here at touchedbyheaven.net. Thanks for the Patreon help, patreon.com, or here at touchedbyheaven.net. And I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack. And tell you what, Monica, if you don't mind, just kind of going back to the very first time you and I met.
He just kind of looked at me all stupid, and like, he had a couple good zingers once in a while, but he thought he was hilarious.